Which brand has lost you as a customer? Thrifty car rental. Got a car with problems I noticed on my drive from the airport. At the same time my dad was in hospice and they weren't sure how long he would be alive. Thrifty wouldn't do anything to help me. Told me to return the car and exchange it. And they would charge me for the pleasure. I tried to explain my situation. Airport was 2 hours away. Dad's dying. Can I have AAA tow it back to them or something? No. I ended up renting a second car in my hometown while he was dying and paid for the full 2 weeks renting one car that worked and one from Thrifty. Complained to corporate and their response was basically, maybe you shouldn't have prioritized your dad's dying over a rental car. Frick Thrifty. Kat Von D Cosmetics lost me when she said she won't vaccinate her kid. Sprint. My first cell phone was Sprint. Had them for years. Then they decided to charge me twice a month for one phone. Called to get it fixed. And nothing. I switched to AT&T and we cancelled Sprint. Kept same number though. Sprint kept charging me after cancelling and tried to sue me for not paying. Even though I had record of a cancellation. Got them to drop those charges, but then sued me for not paying the late fees for those payments I didn't pay after I cancelled. British Airways. I lived abroad. My mum came to visit. 3 days into her trip my dad died, and we had to fly to UK immediately. I needed to change the date of her return flight to that day, and buy one new ticket for myself. My stipulations were we both need to be on the same plane as soon as possible. They booked my seat first. Said there was only business class available, which I agreed to. Then after taking payment said there were no seats for my mum, so she's on a different flight later in the day. Also my seat was non-refundable as it was less than 24 hours until the flight. PS 3k out of pocket. I immediately called Virgin Atlantic. Explained. They said get to the airport ASAP and we'll sort it out. They met us at the check-in desk. Took our passports and luggage while we waited at a cafe. Then walked us through the airport and security, right to the door of the plane. From phone to plane seat in 3 hours. I just don't know how I was so failed by one, and so welcomed and helped by the other. I'll never set foot on a Bay plane. Tim Hortons. Prices keep rising, and quality is absolute crap now. DirecTV. Got diagnosed with leukemia. They spent the first month figuring out how to fire me. Second month they insisted they never received any documentation from my physician. Even when I was on the phone with a nursing assistant as she faxed the information to them. Walked into the office one day, they gave me a box and walked me out because I hadn't provided the necessary documentation within 30 days. Frick DirecTV. Expedia. They've screwed me several times now, and their customer service straight up lies and is designed to be so frustrating you give up. Avast. I was happy for the most part, but one day I noticed my browser changed to Avast one, without me ever installing it, accepting it or even being notified that said browser is being added to the package. When I install I always go for manual options, so I can tick off unwanted crap. This just happened with one of the updates, so no thanks Avast. You can go frick yourself now. Logan's Roadhouse. Went to one a decade ago and got a buffalo chicken sandwich. It was raw in the middle. I told the server and her response was yeah. It's usually a safer bet to get the chicken strips. Left right then and haven't/won't go back. SiriusXM. I've never been spammed more by a company in my life after cancelling my subscription. Seriously, like 30 letters and 10 calls in 6 months, even after picking up those calls and telling them to remove me from their lead list. Comcast. Despite their crappy service I was willing to re-up with them if they would keep the initial rate I had been paying the previous 2 years. They declined, and when asked if they wanted some of my money or none of my money they boldly told me that none of my money was the best option for them. Normal businesses can't survive with that kind of disrespect and disregard for their customers. They are 100% a monopoly. Grubhub. I placed an order for sushi to be delivered one night a couple of months ago and settled into wait. Got a call from the restaurant. No driver had showed up, and my food had been waiting to be delivered for like half an hour. Then I find out my food's going to be another hour or hour and a half behind. Grubhub issues me a $10 credit. Whatever. The restaurant calls me back. and the poor woman is trying to figure out if she can drive my order over herself. Because she knows this is unacceptable and she feels really bad about all this. The driver finally picks up my food. So I start tracking him on GPS. He starts driving away from me, knowing that I'd been waiting 2 hours for my food. My freaking sushi. Mind you, he decided that other people's deliveries were more important than mine. Then, when he delivered my food, he told me that 6 drivers before him had refused to take my delivery. The final topping on this crap sundae, my sushi was warm. So I immediately contacted customer support. Not once did they apologize. Not once did they say that this kind of treatment of a customer was unacceptable. I told them that my sushi was warm when it arrived. They offered me a $10 credit. I'm sorry, but if you deliver me food that has me questioning its safety, shouldn't you be refunding me the cost of the meal plus $5 delivery fee, especially after I've already found out 6 of your drivers couldn't be asked to take a delivery 4 freaking miles? Well, our drivers are contractors, so they're allowed to refuse deliveries. If you'd like, I can have manager contact you. Please do. And you don't think it's worth incentivizing your drivers in some way so that this kind of crap doesn't happen? Surprise, surprise. Manager never contacted me. I deleted my info, then the app, and I tell people not to bother with Grubhub. They take no responsibility when something goes wrong. Apparently I'm still way more upset over this than I realize. That sushi restaurant has a customer for life, though, for being willing to try to get me my food despite Grubhub's frickery. Obligatory thanks for the gold edit. Thank you so much. My very first. It's incredibly validating to find out I'm not alone in my frustration. Breyers, when you can't even call it ice cream because there's not enough actual cream, and it must be called frozen dairy dessert. Alstead, I was at fault in an auto accident. I was distracted thinking about a friend who was near death and rear-ended someone. No injuries, but my truck did a lot of damage to the other car. The young man who owned it was very nice. I felt awful, especially when it was clear his car was not drivable and possibly rottled. I assured him I was well insured and called my agent to verify he would get a rental until the claim was settled. I told the police and the apostate claims debt it was 100% my fault. I felt certain the young man would be taken care of. Wrong. About 6 weeks later he called me. He said he hated to bother me, but Alstead was being very difficult. He only had the rental for a week, but they waited 3 weeks to inspect his car and make him an offer. They said he was partially responsible, so they were only going to give him half the value of his car, which was totaled. He couldn't begin to get a comparable replacement for what he was offered. I spent a week arguing with the claim debt with no results. He tried to file with his carrier for underinsured motorist coverage, but my limit of liability is $250. 000, so I'm not underinsured. My husband and I paid him a fair amount for his car plus $1,000 for all the hassle, and then cancelled every line of business we had with apostate, auto, home, boat, motorcycle, and commercial. Our annual premiums are over $30. 000, and State Farm has our business now. But I'm still furious at how they treated this kid. If we weren't fortunate enough to have taken care of this out of pocket, this gut would have been royally screwed. Great young man with a wife and baby, working to become a licensed electrician. Just theme type of person you want to crap on, right? The Sci-Fi channel once they rebranded to Sci-Fi. For one thing, that's just a stupid name. For another, they haven't put out much in the way of quality science fiction television in years. And the few things they did, like The Expanse, they half-assed. Paddy Power held my money hostage for weeks following a big win, because apparently my account wasn't correctly verified. This hadn't stopped them taking my money for roughly 6 years until that win. Adobe, €130 for Lightroom with upgrade to a new version, every 1-2 years, costing €70 was a very fair deal for hobby photographers. Buy the software and then buy every other upgrade, or not, and use it forever. But no, Adobe had to switch everything to their subscription model. So now you pay €12 per month to keep using the software. The perpetual license version hasn't received feature updates in some time, and recently it got its last camera/lens support update. It's now no longer being supported. I'll keep using the software as long as I have a camera/lens that is supported, and as long as it's not outdated. But once there's a need to update, I will look for something that's not made by Adobe. Wells Fargo. I had the same account since I was 10. It started as my hometown bank, but after many buyouts Wells took over. Kept them for a long time, but after all the shot came out of their predatory practices, I closed all my accounts and will never look back. Well, not really a brand, but a store. Kohl's can suck my left nut. Their business model is atrocious to me. They seem to mark up every product in the store, like 100%, and then throw Kohl's cash and discounts at you to make it seem like you're saving money. But at the end of the day you're spending just as much as if you just went somewhere else. It seems like that store has everything perpetually 75% off, and they are still making boatloads of money. How do people not connect the dots? I have 3 dogs. If your company airs a commercial with a doorbell sound during the ad, I don't buy from you. Boston Pizza. Worked for them in 2002, and I still haven't forgiven them. Also, they microwave their nachos. Freaking Dr. Skull's shoes. 20 years ago they were great if you were on your feet a lot. Now they're sold at Walmart and are absolute garbage. And I'm pretty sure he's not a real doctor. Nestle. Any brand with a loud, auto-playing advertisement that takes a large portion of the screen, or uses the "here is the link you wanted," whoops, the page just shifted up and you clicked on our ad. Thanks for the business tactic. EA. Need I say why? I try really hard to avoid Walmart, but I live in small town America and sometimes I can't avoid it. I don't like how they treat their employees, but mostly it's because the tire and oil change manager at my Walmart is a chauvinistic, loathsome carbuncle of a human being. Dennis. 40 minutes for cold food, 20 after we finished eating to get the check. 4 people with 4 separate checks, and every ticket had our collective mismatched food. 15 minutes for the manager to fix it. Some of the stuff on the ticket we didn't even get. Waffle House is home. Masses. I worked as the visual merchandiser at Masses for a few years. In 2016 a large, heavy, wooden shelf fell out of the wall. The bracket broke and landed on my neck, shoulder, and back. I was obviously injured. We are talking 40 plus lbs crushing down onto my spine here, and went to their doctor. Even though the doctor didn't want me lifting/pushing/pulling anything over 10 pounds. Masses still made me work, lift heavy mannequins, climb ladders, etc. They flat told me that they didn't give a crap, that my restrictions say to basically not use my right arm. The instructions didn't say, don't fold XL towels for 5 hours, so I had to do what they say. I was miserable. I finally had surgery number 1 on my shoulder 5 months later. The surgeon said he was flabbergasted at how fricked up my shoulder was, that it was way worse than he was expecting, and he didn't know how I was able to work on it. Only my muscles were holding my arm in place. My tendons and cartilage and labrum were shot. After surgery I still wasn't better. I had been telling them from the beginning that my neck and head hurt, but they wouldn't allow my doctors to check it. Over a year later Masses let me have a cervical MRI, and guess what? Fricked up blown discs in my neck, compressing on my nerves. I have nerve damage and will need a neck fusion surgery to fix it. They found bone spurs in my lower back from the crush. My entire damn spine hurts. 24/7. On top of all of that, Masses has been fighting every single tiny thing in court, even though it's clear as day what's wrong with me on my scans. Even though all the doctors say the same thing is wrong with me independently. Even though my story has never changed. They refuse to allow me to see pain doctors, refuse to pay for medication, so far over $3K out of pocket, refuse to allow me to have physical therapy. I got frozen shoulder after my surgery number 1 because they refused to allow me to go to PT for over a month after the surgeon said I needed to begin. At our last court hearing the judge flat told them that they are hindering my recovery and they better get it together or he would get them together. I've lost my business. My independence. I had to move back in with my parents. I can't even wash my own hair. Some of my friends. My strength. And my mental health. I have depression. A right arm, dominant hand. BTW, with nerve damage and permanent restrictions. No lifting / pushing / pulling over 10 pounds. No reaching overhead. Shaky hands from the nerve damage. Compressed nerve and herniated discs in my neck that are dangerously close to my spinal cord. Fractured facets in cervical, and, we are expecting, lumbar, and a brain injury. I'm in chronic pain all the time. I never thought they would betray me in this way. It's so bad that even my doctors and lawyers are saying they've never seen a company fight so personally. They are self-insured, so it's my adjuster making all the decisions to make sure I don't get treatment. Please don't shop masses. They don't give a flying frick that I almost died on the job with them. They don't give a single crap that I've suffered permanent damage that will affect me for my entire life. It would have been so much cheaper for them to have just paid for the treatment my doctors all day I need, but instead they choose to fight every step of the way. I mean, come on guys. When the judge tells you to get your crap together and just freaking treat the patient, maybe you need to rethink your crappy malicious plan. Ugh. Fox. They cancelled The Last Man on Earth on a cliffhanger. Frick off. Camel and Marlboro. After smoking for 20 years I finally quit cold turkey 2 years ago. I can now do physical activities without getting winded and haven't felt this good since I was a kid. Walmart. Now I shop at Kroger or Aldi's. Sears. Even their most expensive vacuum cleaners don't hold up under normal use. The one we bought couldn't suck cat hair from the furniture and quit after 1 year. Sears wouldn't warranty it. Every brand that boasts about its JD Power Award for initial reliability to real people, not actors. McDonald's. I know it has never been quality food, but at least it used to be cheaper than the other options. 2 weeks ago I stopped in and paid $8.50 for a breakfast sandwich. Small orange juice and an undercooked hash brown. Local bagel shop. Same ingredients. Better quality. Bigger portions. Final cost $7. Never again will I give them my money. Arby's. My mom got a massive cockroach cooked into the bun. Thankfully it was found when she went to put on some kind of sauce. Refuse to ever eat there now. I stopped banking with major banks. I keep all of my money and get all of my loans from a local credit union. Their rates are amazing. The account fees are non-existent. And I've never had better customer service in my life at any bank, major or minor. Don't reward the big banks. People. Cable TV in general. I haven't had it in 7 years. I've been able to save money just using Netflix / Hulu and occasionally HBO. American Express. I don't remember why, but I'm good at holding a grudge. Ace Hardware. I bought copper pipe from them and didn't get a good look at it until I got home. They loaded it in my truck. It was all corroded and green with built up gunk. I call the store and talk to the owner and he immediately gets defensive saying, "You're the only person who's ever complained about my copper. I have men who know their stuff who exclusively buy their copper from me." I assumed the emphasis on men was meant to be a jab at me being a woman. How could someone without a peen have an opinion on the quality of his copper? I've never pulled the sexist card in my life, but I think this was sexism. My product is made in America. You're not going to find that anywhere else around here. I told him I could physically see it says product of Mexico stamped literally all over the piping. In the end, he refused a refund. Frick that guy. Jimmy John's. I know no one will ever read this, since it'll be in the abyss of this thread, but I'm gonna type this out in the hopes it reaches at least one person. I used to work for Jimmy John's back in college. I needed some money and was looking for a part-time job. Initially, I landed one with JJ's, until I realized how grossly managed it was. They had meats and bread stuck in the freezers for weeks. The people that worked there were miserable, and the job consisted mostly of just cleaning. Not sure what we had to clean, since there were barely any customers ever. After only 2 weeks, I had had enough. But that's not where my story gets interesting. After those 2 glorious weeks of fine dining and cleaning, I found a better job with Chick-fil-A, a great business. I went back to JJ's to get my first and last check to find that they didn't have it. I told the manager I never received my check, and he said he never heard of my name. Befuddled, I asked, are you sure you don't remember conducting my interview and hiring me just 2 weeks ago? To which he replied, nope. So I called the district manager who was in charge of overseeing all JJs in the area and told him what had happened. He was nice the first few times I had met him. A couple times during those 2 weeks he came in and acted as the manager for the day and hung around yelling orders at us, which were mainly just, you guessed it, clean. But he was kind to me in personal one-on-one conversations. However, after disclosing the paycheck, a measly $150, if I may add, which is a lot of a part-time college student, he said he'd get right on it and call me when he found it. Another 2 weeks later, and a whopping $325 paycheck from Chick-fil-A, I went back to JJ's, since I had still not received my call. And guess who was at the front? Mr. District Manager. I asked him if he had found the paycheck, to which he replied, I'm sorry, do I know you? I told him the story again, and he continues to act as if he had never met me. I called ours the next day infuriated and disclosed all the details of what had occurred as I could remember. Ours did not care either. They told me they never had my information on record as a previous working employee. I do not go to Jimmy John's anymore. My friends do not go to Jimmy John's anymore. Jimmy John's is dead to me. And if you don't believe in free labor either, let them be dead to you. Thanks for reading. Edit. I didn't expect this comment to be seen nearly as much as it has been. I wanted to thank all of you for any legal advice or moral support. It's always great to get help from fellow redditors. This incident did happen 3-4 years ago, and I was too young to know what to do with any legal trouble like this, and also didn't see a reason to care or pursue it over $150. I've moved on from the incident, but can guarantee I have never been to a Jimmy John's since. Haha. Lipton tea. I found I preferred Twinings. Number Admiral car insurance. Car was hit, not our fault, and is undrivable. Called Admiral there and then. Sent photos when I got home later than day. 5 days later I get a text saying photos not received. Claim cannot move forward with it. So I emailed them again and said please confirm you've received the photos. I didn't get a response, despite emailing every day asking for an update, along with calling the team who just kept saying they'd look into it. Few more days of this, and I get put through to some other guy who gives me his personal email. I send him the photos and he says he's received them, and the claim will be processed. A week later, I get a text saying, photos haven't been received, please send to process claim. I called and went nuts at them. It'd been weeks at this point, and they still hadn't even processed my photos. So I sent the photos again, and copied in the guy who claimed he'd processed them. I asked for someone to confirm they'd received them. Did I hear back? Did I frick? 2 days pass, so I called the complaints department and made an official complaint. Complaints assured me that the claim is being processed. They tell me it can take up to a week to process. So at the end of the week I call for an update. Well, guess what? The idiots still hadn't processed it. Not only that, they were claiming that as I sent the email to a private account it's taken longer to access. Private account? I sent it to the claims department and copied in the other people. Don't give me that bullcrap. 2. Then they said the photos hadn't been attached to the email. I literally had the email in front of me, so I could see that they had. Not to mention I'd already sent it 3 times before that. 3. Then they claimed that they had gotten the photos, but that they couldn't open the pictures because it was in a weird format and they had to get the engineers to open it, so that would take a while. Photos were standard JPG. So again that was bollocks, which I called them up on. So I said I was taking legal action against them, ongoing. Then magically they pulled their fingers out of their asses and started to process my claim. All in all it took them over a month to send someone to look at the car. There's no public transport here, and Admiral wouldn't send a replacement car until they'd done the preliminary checks on my car. So I had to get taxes everywhere, which cost a small fortune. So I've charged Admiral for that cost. I'm confident they will cover the cost, but they've lost not only me and my family as customers, but I work with the government and we have thousands of employees covered by them. Well, guess who has the power to cancel our insurance with Admiral? Let me tell you, that was an orgasmic call to make. Kat Von D, you don't have to vaccinate your kids. Of course. Only the ones you want to stay alive. Enterprise. After they tried to tell my mom, who was dying of cancer at the time, that she'd somehow damaged the underside of their car, she hadn't, on one of her trips to and from CTCA, and then proceeded to make a fuss about it, never going to give them a single freaking cent, as long as I live. And I try to remember to flip off their local office every time I go past it. Edit. To be clear, the underside of the car was damaged the way they described. There's just no way that she could have done it, because she was driving it on smooth highways basically the whole way there and the whole way back. And of course, even if she did, she was, dying at the time. We figured either they were lazy and didn't check it properly before renting it to us, or just figured they might be able to get a payout out of us. We couldn't prove she wasn't responsible, since we hadn't thought to check it beforehand. Screw us for assuming basic competence on the part of these freakwits. And even if we had, she was in her 60s and again, dying of cancer. So it's not like she was going to get on her hands and knees and check the underside of her car in their unbelievably tiny parking lot right next to the busiest intersection in town. So, frick Enterprise. Chipotle. The owner treats restaurant staff like crap. Unfortunately, Bungie Studios, their game design and management has gone right down after Activision purchased them. Sad to see such a great game company fall. Home Depot. I always find myself back there because of convenience, and every time they continue to amaze me at how incompetent they are at even completing the simplest things for their customers. Also, their corporate customer service is a joke. My gripe is not so much with Home Depot specialists. I have learned to take anything they tell me with a grain of salt. I do however think the pass the buck mentality runs rampant in these mega stores. My problem was more with management and HD's pro services. One mistake after another, promises after promises to fix their mistakes, and consistently letting me down time and time again. But fool me twice, so maybe I'm the sucker. PayPal. I've been denied withdrawing my money for literally no reason whatsoever. I've had to verify my card 5 times, and the customer service is non-existent. I sure hope this isn't the experience everyone gets. Starbucks. I still believe the owner knew the Sonics would leave Seattle when he sold them. Uber. My account got hacked. Someone got a couple rides in Beijing. I live in the USA. Contacted support about it, and they gave me credits. They wouldn't just refund my money after my freaking account got compromised. Such a piece of crap company. Started using Lyft instead, and haven't had any problems yet. Frick Uber. Popeyes. How do you call it fast food when every time I order it takes 25 minutes? Spirit Airlines. Once you get past the allure of cheap effort, you realize how crappy of an airline they actually are. Their flight times are super inconvenient, either ass crack of dawn early or midnight. Constant delays. Incredibly hard to use your miles. You get nothing but a seat. I used to use them sparingly, because they are the only commercial airline at an airport that is 10 minutes away from my house. But after enough bad experiences, coupled with me discovering JetBlue, which, in my experience, has been the best low-cost airline so far, I'll never fly Spirit again. Chevy. For shoving their real people, not actors' advertisements down our throats for the past 3 years. Ulta. I love MacUp, and used to love shopping there, but the sales associates make me too uncomfortable anymore. Last time I went I was stopped and asked if I needed help 7 different times. Sometimes by the same employees. Just freaking leave me alone and let me shop.